The Rental Tribunal is an impartial organization that helps tenants and landlords by providing information, conducting research, mediating in their conflicts, and if necessary, settling their conflicts by making a ruling that is binding on both parties with applicable laws and regulations. The Civil Code, which regulates the rental tribunal and lease agreements, ensures that both tenants and landlords are able to address the court if they are not in agreement with the decision of the rental tribunal. The Department of Communications spoke with member of the rental tribunal, Mr. Edward Jacobs, on the importance of the committee's role.
In 1939, there was a rental tribunal, but it was established for Curacao and Aruba alone, right? And why that came in, and in 1947, it was changed when the influx of people start going to Curacao and Aruba to work and so forth. And the owners of houses were jacking up the prices to their own feeling. And there, the government came in and to regulate the prices of houses, dwelling that they could, what you can manage. St. Martin didn't have no rent tribunal, and the people from Curacao, because it was a federal department, used to come to St. Martin when necessary to deal with the rental issues. In 1977, then St. Martin, the federal government gave St. Martin the authority to establish their own rental tribunal. So that is how it started in St. Martin. And the rental tribunal has a task to get into helping people when there's a conflict between landlord and tenant. The tenant can come to the rental tribunal. The landlord also have the same rights. And also the rental tribunal gave the government gave the rental tribunal permission to establish the maximum price that can be charged for a dwelling or a business, right? And in those years, it was maximum 100,000 guilders if the establishment of the building plus the parcel of land had a value of more than 100,000 guilders, then the rental tribunal had no saying in that. And the third part is that the rental tribunal can have hearings when, let's say, for instance, in cases of the landlord want to terminate the rental agreement, and that doesn't go just like that. There've got to be reasons and valid reasons, and then the rental tribunal will call a hearing and hear the person. The rental board consists of a chairman, 2 members, and to the board, a secretary is attached. Each one of those members have a deputy. So if the chairman cannot be there, he have a deputy, will take over, then he will be, or she will be the person to deal with the chair. So all members have someone to replace them if they cannot, to deputize for them. The law is written in Dutch. And most of the time, people apply for jobs in government, or there are people working, it used to be people that work in government, and they say we need people for the rental tribunal, the person will apply. But you got to study the law. So now, being that the law is in Dutch, if you're not versed in the Dutch language, you cannot function.
Yeah.
Because a person can see you on the road and ask you a question, now, I don't know. And that is not the way it's supposed to be. The tenant must make sure that they are a good renter. So you sign an agreement, or if it's a verbal agreement, you have to pay monthly. You have the date that you have to pay. You have to keep the place clean. Be respectful to your landlord and all of those things. Because some people say yes, if I want to pay late, I can pay anytime I want. And if a person, normally if the person owe 3 months or more, it's a reason for the landlord to request termination of the rental agreement. And then they come to the rental board. But also, if the tenant is constantly paying late, that's for 8, 6, 7 months, they're paying late every day, every month, that can also be a reason for the landlord to request termination. They come to the rental tribunal with all kinds of questions. And for instance, they come that they rent in and they have the landlord give them electricity and water. That does not fall on the rental board. We do not deal with water and light. Because actually, if the landlord renting you an apartment, they have to give you a notice to go to GB to get permission to install your light and electricity. But the reason why it doesn't happen, because most of those shacks, let me call them shacks, or they can be apartments too, they are built without a building permit. And if you don't have a building permit, you have to go by permit to show that you have a building permit, that they check the building, that everything is up to date before you can go to GB for GB to install.
Yeah.
So GB business we don't deal with. Also, they come by us about the deposits. Deposit doesn't fall under the rental tribunal either. You see, because that's a different article in the civil law, in the book. It's not in the book from the rental tribunal. The landlord will file a petition with the rental tribunal stating who the person is, where the location is, why they want to terminate the agreement. And then we will study the case, and if it's a valid case, then we will call in both parties in due time, at least 2 weeks before the hearing. The landlord and the tenant must be notified in writing. But the law says by registered mail, but registered mail, sometimes it never reaches, so we make use of a courier, and the courier will carry the summons to both parties, right, and they will proceed to the rental tribunal on the day of the hearing, and then we will have the hearing. I mentioned one already, not two. I mentioned deposit. I mentioned the one about a GB. But people sign contracts sometimes also, and they don't read what is written in the contract. And there is where also afterwards, when the landlord show them on that point, then they come to us and ask us what they can do. We say, listen, you signed the contract. Before you sign a contract, an agreement, you must read it. If you cannot read it, leave someone that has the knowledge that they can explain you what it's all about. They're coming with, some people come because they don't have no parking. But, there are a lot of things people they comes with, and then you say, sorry, this is nothing that we can deal with. In 2014, there's a new law on rent. It's in Book 7, and it's promulgated on the 9th of January in 2014, where the amount that I mentioned a while ago of 100,000 guilders was increased to 200,000 guilders. So any building, land, and with the property, if it has a value of no more than 200,000 guilders, then we can establish the maximum amount that the landlord can charge for that property. And sometimes landlords want to increase the rental fee that they charge on a monthly basis. That doesn't go just like that. They also have to come back to the rental tribunal, and there the rental tribunal will check the building again and see if any improvements were made or whatever, and then establish maximum price that can be charged, you see. But actually, we see people building apartments, complexes, and so all of those buildings, all of those owners, before they rent, they must go by the rental tribunal and request the maximum amount that they can charge per unit. It's not the complex. Each unit have a price. And if that price is not exceeding 200,000, then the rental tribunal can decide on the maximum amount of rent that to be charged. The law stipulates that, it's stipulated in the law that before any increase or before a new building or whatever is rented to a new tenant, the tenant have the right also to come and say, listen, they charge me $500, but I think it's not worth it. So then also the rental tribunal can go and establish the maximum amount. No, there were no changes to the law because the changes have to be made by the parliament. But I can remember that the Minister of Finance stated that ask the landlords to put their hand over their heart because there are hard times for everybody and see where they can help as possible. As I stated already, anytime the person owes 3 months or more, there's a possibility they can go directly to court. They don't need to come to the rental tribunal. Because the process by the rental tribunal is that after we take a decision and the landlord and tenant receive their decision, they have 6 weeks to appeal our decision. And to, let's say that the person have to leave the apartment, the termination of the agreement. After that 6 weeks, the landlord can go to court or the tenant can go to court and get a statement. They call it a verklaring. And with that, they come to us in case that the tenant has to vacate the apartment or the house. And we will give them a document, we call it a grosser, with which they can go to the marshal, and then the marshal will proceed to evict the person from the house or apartment. You see, that makes the termination of that agreement very long, while if you go to court, the court take a decision, and from there, everything, from the minute you receive the verdict from the court, right there they can start the process. But there's a fee they have to pay. It depends. Sometimes it's 460 guilders, sometimes it's 750 guilders. But when you send in your request, you can also ask the court to leave the losing party, take care of all your expenses that you had to incur to go to court. Cutting electricity, taking off water, trying to go into the people's apartment without their permission. And there are other cases that we have that tenants leaves the building, they doesn't give back the key to the landlord, and then for months the building is locked, and the landlord comes and asks us to give them permission to go in and take out the stuff. We tell them, no, we cannot do that because it's only the court can do that. And that is also a process that you have to follow. And most of the time, they don't even know where the tenants are. Maybe sometimes the tenant is not registered, not even registered in the census office. So it becomes very difficult. And people feel that rental tribunal can give permission to go in. No. If you go in there and you enter without permission from the owner, they can file a complaint with you by the police that you stole things off their property. It's an unlawful entry. A good rental agreement is that both parties must agree on the issues that are written in the agreement. Some landlords put what they think is good for them, but then the tenant also have to say no, but this is not according to the laws of St. Martin, because some landlords put in issues, stipulate procedures that are not falling under our laws. So sometimes people come to the office and they say, can you check the agreement for me? I say, but you signed it already. You signed it already, there's nothing we can do. No, we don't get it. That is a private matter, because then I'm giving out your private information. Let's say you were renting from 3 different tenants, landlords, and all 3 times it was a bad pay. Now, if a landlord come by us and ask us, can I rent this lady my apartment? Say, no, sir, we cannot tell you that. That is your private issue with this person.
What about deposit and the reason for it?
Okay, as we know, if you rent an apartment or a building or a house, the outside is for the landlord. The inside is for the tenant. So now, when someone is going to rent, they have to inspect the building in and out, take pictures, have a file that tomorrow, when you're going to leave, and the landlord tell you, yeah, but this is not fixed, that's not fixed, this is not fixed, then you can show in what condition you reached it, you meet it. And the deposit is only there to, if the landlord have to fix things inside, then they will fix the damages, and then what stay over will be reimbursed to the tenant. Some landlords put a period of 3 months, but that is beyond our jurisdiction, so we can't do nothing with that.
How to not get evicted and how to evict someone, what is the basis?
Not to get evicted, live up to your commitments. If you don't want to be evicted, then pay on time, be a good renter, as I said before. And how to start the process, I said it already, the landlord have to file a petition with the rent tribunal. We will check it out. And if there are valid reasons, then we will start a hearing. But we don't evict. We give permission to terminate the rental agreement. And once that is done, and no party goes to appeal, then we give a grosser to the landlord. They go by the marshal, and the marshal will start the process of evicting. We don't evict. Depends what kind of maintenance. Small little things. Let's say a doorknob, the plunger for the toilet, little things like that falls for the tenant. Big repairs falls under the landlord. The outside, everything outside is the landlord is the one responsible for that. So when you're leaving, You paint the apartment in the inside or the house on the inside on the same color, maybe that's how you find it. Well, how long the court takes is out of. I cannot say that. It depends, because I can say about the rent tribunal, before every month we had hearings, but now we could have hearings twice a month. But now, after Irma, there was a big influx of cases. Then we have the pandemic. Places had to be closed down. Even our office had to be closed down because, of safety. So at this time, I cannot say how long it will take. It will take in a good while, though, I can say that, because we getting bombarded with cases morning, noon, and night. Mm-hmm. So how the court is dealing with it now, I do not know. I think it's every 3 weeks they have hearings concerning rental cases. The landlord have to be fair with his tenant, and the tenant have to respect whatever is in the agreement. Yeah. If the tenant does not agree with certain issues in the agreement, as I said, then they have to go and talk to the landlord and see if they can reach an agreement. If not, then the only thing I have to say, well, I'm not going to rent your apartment or your house. They're 7 years now, because in 2014, the laws were changed. And there were certain, for instance, with the maximum amount, we proposed a higher amount, but the parliament accepted 200,000. And our way of thinking is building a house in Curacao or in Aruba is not the same like building a house in St. Martin. Material, labor in St. Martin is much, much higher. Mm-hmm. And my son in Aruba told me, Daddy, with 200,000 guilders in St. Martin, it's a chicken coop you can build. Mm-hmm. That way I explained, but, and that is why people say the rent board is not doing anything. But when we establish that the maximum price of that building is over 200,000, there's nothing we can do with it. Each party have to go look for the adjuster and sit and talk and see what they can reach at. Property got to be in your name. Or if it's property that has been inherited, then if you want to represent all the heirs, you must have a power of attorney, which all of them sign that you are the person that represent them. Yeah. And then you can start whatever litigation you want against tenants. So you can't rent because they promised me this piece is mine, that piece is, no. Everybody must be in agreement. And most of the sometimes you can't get everybody to do that. Yeah. And then there's nothing we can do. If we don't have, and sometimes they cannot find all the heirs of that property. So that means to rent, you must have permission from all, because all of them have shares in it. So once you don't have that, yeah, there's nothing you can do. All the issues concerning rent are civil cases. And they are not criminal cases. So all of these issues are dealt with by the civil section of the court. So they are in our civil laws, and they are not criminal issues.
Even as St. Martin economies continues its recovery from the devastating pandemic, people face deep rental debt and fear evictions and loss of basic housing security. COVID-19 has heightened a housing crisis that predated the pandemic and has exacerbated deep disparities that threaten the strength of an economy recovery that must work for everyone. The work of the Rental Tribunal is relevant to several of the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs), such as the goal of sustainable cities and communities by 2030, in ensuring access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services. For more information on the Rental Tribunal, the office is located at E. Camille Richardson Street, number 22, next to the police station in Phillipsburg, or send them an email at rent22@gmail.com. Telephone number +1 721 5420 145.